Welcome, everybody. I'm Andy with WagerTalk.com. That is Steve. We are here to go over the Jazz Clippers series preview. We're going to tackle this from a player props standpoint. Where's the value? Where does the value not lie? And how can we make money on player props? We've done very well in this NBA playoffs. So, Steve, we have the Jazz, we have the Clippers, two teams that can be a little confusing on how to go after player props. So I'll go to you. Where do you want to start with who you like in this series from player props?
We can start with the Jazz side of things. I have a sneaky player, dark horse that I mentioned earlier in video, Royce O'Neal. I just feel like that number 6.5 is so low for the amount of minutes that he's going to be on the court guarding Kawhi Leonard. So I think that's a sneaky play for people that they might want to check out. We talked about Gobert. I know he's your kryptonite, but his rebounds seem to be a good number to go over, in my opinion, just because of the fact that the Clippers have no one size-wise to really, contend with him.
Yeah, let's go back to Royce O'Neal, because this goes back to one of the things that we've kind of been harping on is be very careful about taking these overs on these big-name guys, because more often than not, the unders are going to hit. We look at the Nets game last night against the Bucks. Durant has a huge game, 32 points, and the over was 32.5. Kyrie has a big game, gets 22 points, and the under hits. And Giannis, the under hits. And we're seeing a lot of this happen. And we've talked about we love the value in some of these lesser tier guys that have the very low point totals that are going to be on the court a lot, that are just going to luck into it. So I really love this Royce O'Neal call from you. Is that kind of where you were looking at, like the combination of low number and high minutes?
Yeah, that's something that we've loved to go to, as far as, like you say, some of these bigger name guys. Donovan Mitchell is a guy that I would actually still lean over just because he's so great in the playoffs. But you are right. There's so many times when these big name players, their numbers are so inflated that it's hard to get the over. And you have to look towards the guys like these middle ranked guys that can just hit a couple shots and get you hit a couple 3-pointers and they're almost there. Those are the guys you kind of have to look to for these overs sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Royce O'Neal game log, and just the last 4 games, 3 of 7, 3 of 5, 4 of 7, and 4 for 6. That's just from 3-point land. So he's been getting over this 6.5 points just by hitting those. So I think it's a great call. What do we expect offense and defensive wise, just as a whole, from these two teams? Because I really like what the Clippers did offensively when they moved Reggie Jackson in the starting lineup, and then they just figured out a lot of ball movement towards the end of the series, and that'll get them some wide open shots. Obviously, the Jazz are a much different team defensively for the Clippers. So if you're the Clippers, how do you attack the Jazz?
I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to end up having to go a little bigger with Zubac out there a little bit more to contend with Gobert, or if they're just going to try to eat him up with a pick and roll and force Gobert out of the paint. Essentially, that could be what they look to do as well. Reggie Jackson was a guy that we both really liked, as far as he fell into the starting lineup based on almost a situation against the Dallas Mavericks. So I could see maybe them having to go a little bit bigger though against the Jazz though.
And we got to talk about the big name guys in this series and what to do with their player props. We're talking Paul George, we're talking Kawhi Leonard, Donovan Mitchell, and the books are hanging big numbers. They know this is where the public goes. That I want to take Paul George over, Kawhi over, Donovan Mitchell over. So if you had to pick one guy that you would lean over, you mentioned Donovan Mitchell. Is he your favorite to go over some of these totals?
Yeah, that's my guy for the big name guys. Personally, he's just had such great postseason games the past couple of years, and as far as when he came back from that injury in the last series against Memphis, he's been hitting his point total. It's been close. Like we mentioned, he's going to have to do everything right to get there, but he's my favorite guy of those 3.
Yeah, when we talk about going over these big totals, you have to avoid several things. You have to avoid the blowout where everyone sits at the end. You have to avoid an injury, and you have to avoid foul trouble. And we think Donovan Mitchell should be okay from foul trouble. Guards don't really get into foul trouble a whole lot. But injury, not been the healthiest guy in the world. And blowouts. Blowouts can happen at any time, and all of a sudden you got a guy who is used to playing 40 minutes, now just played 31. So it's really tough to get there. And Paul George would be somebody that people would look, but once again, the total for points, rebounds, and assists is 37.5. You have a 20.9 rebound, 6 assist game, and all of a sudden you're under, even though he had a great game. And Kawhi, they're putting this at over 40.5. So what can we expect from Kawhi Leonard, Paul George? I lean unders on those guys.
Yeah, it's tough because, like you mentioned, those three, extenuating circumstances that are just the injuries, the blowouts, and I would actually add a fourth one to that: missing free throws.
The free
There's
throws,
four of them. Yeah,
the Ben Simmons.
yeah, it's just brutal sometimes when you have an over and you look back on it and you see that the guy went horrible from the line, and if he had just hit 2 more free throws, he would have been golden, but you don't get there because of that as well.
Yeah, we're talking the Jazz and Clippers series. We're going to give you guys our predictions for the series and finish up the player props. I do want to bring up, we have a promo code LANG999. This is 12 months of picks for $999. I know everyone normally does the daily packages, but this is a promo code that gets you 50% off. And if I can make the case for why this is so much better, you get all 4% plays, all 5% plays, which everyone loves, but you also get every play from every sport. And to just use an example, golf, I'm up over 100 units in the 2021 season. So just golf picks pays for this and then some. And I also looked, and Steve, I went back and looked at our collaboration plays and packages. And last week, if you just went daily, you would have spent over $120 last week. So 9 weeks, this is the same price, and you get a full year. So it's so important to look at this long term and not daily. And 3 days we've been pushing a lot. We've had some success with there, but if you're looking at handicappers, you got to look at long term, because anybody can get a package and have a bad Thursday. But over the course of the year, that's where the best handicappers really flex their muscle and show, like, yeah, I can hit 59% over 12 months. So I really encourage everyone to use it. I myself have yearly subscriptions to some guys on WagerTalk, believe it or not. I'm a client as well as an employee there. So use the promo code LANG999. It gets you 12 months of picks for $999. This is good through Thursday. I really encourage it. So let's get back to the Jazz Clippers series. Let's do what we think is going to happen in this series. I'm looking at minus 140 for the Jazz to win the series, plus 115. Steve, what say you?
I lean Jazz, especially tonight. I like them tonight laying the 4 points with the Clippers coming off that hard-fought 7-game series. I lean Jazz in the series as well. Obviously, one thing we didn't touch on is the Conley injury, how that's going to affect things. That's a big question mark. But if he plays and he's healthy, that makes me really love the Jazz at that point.
I lean Jazz too. I think Paul George has kind of gotten a bad rap with, playoff P and pandemic P and some of that stuff. I live in Indianapolis. I watched him go toe-to-toe with LeBron back in the Miami Heat days. So he's had his flashes, but unfortunately that's the problem. Flashes. The consistency is just not there. We'll see if we get it. I would lean Jazz as well. I can't lay the minus 140. If you do like the Jazz, you're hoping for a Clippers win tonight. You're hoping the Clippers, kind of sneak one out, and then you may get even money and take Utah over 6 games. So lean Jazz, but I don't think it's as strong as an opinion as we've had in some of the others. So we really like the Atlanta Hawks against 76ers. But this one, the numbers feel about right. I don't see a value one way or the other. So, Steve, this was really good. Any other players you want to mention in this series, or have we covered them all?
One guy I might just want to touch on again is just Reggie Jackson from the Clippers standpoint. He's been great for us as far as his points total over, being thrust into the starting lineup during that Mavs series, and he's shooting dynamite from three-point land. And I would look at him for an over on points. He's another dark horse kind of in that Royce O'Neal mold where you don't need a huge game to get there like some of these other big names. And that would be another place that I would look.
That's great stuff. We are going to have player prop packages up on WagerTalk.com throughout the NBA playoffs, coming off a really good 3-1 night last night in NBA. So, Steve, thanks so much for joining us. That is the Jazz Clippers playoff preview. Hope you guys cash some tickets. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.